2, and 1. Welcome to the SpeakersInc.com Global Speakers Showcase. My name is Dwayne Rockwell, and I am hugely privileged to be here again to introduce the next of the speakers in this amazing series. What we are doing is giving you an opportunity to see speakers right here on this platform that might well be the perfect fit for your next event or function. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where the magic happens. So I trust, of course, everybody is going to stay very tuned, give us all of your attention, because today's speaker is most certainly going to be one that is very interesting to you if you are in any way, shape or form involved in the events industry. Listen out for the word mammoth. It's going to be mentioned a couple of times. It is a very interesting talk, and I've got to know Leon just a little, and believe you me, this is one very interesting human being. I'd also like to remind you, please, if you would like any information after the talk and after the question section, please go on to speakersinc.com, find out more about Speakers Inc. And of course, We Speak, Duncan and Bronwyn are the two people who bring you that magic. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to SpeakersInc.com Global Speakers Showcase and to the next of our speakers in the series. Our next speaker helps passionate leaders like you to create self-motivated teams that love their job and achieve mammoth results. As well as being a speaker, he is a business consultant, mediator, and still works in corporate business leading teams. Over the last 20 years, he found that a lot of potential is wasted because we are so focused on the next task that we fail to create the conditions to deliver amazing results now. Today, he's here to talk to you about how you can help make your events even greater, with less stress to you and in a way that others will love you so much more. Will you all, please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and help me to welcome the fantastic Leon Bamforth.
How do you deliver the best events? It can't just be you, can it? You have to bring the whole team together, from audiovisual, catering, the venue, speakers. All of us have to come together and do our part to enable the audience to leave energized and better equipped to take on the world. But I get it. It's tough. Bringing a team together is often like herding cats. I'm actually only a part-time speaker. The majority of what I do is lead a team. The problem with that is I'm fundamentally lazy. I cannot be bothered doing other people's jobs. It's so draining. Instead, what I do is enable people to be brilliant and allow them to deliver amazing results. There's nothing more exciting for me than to achieve that. And there's one tool that I'm going to share with you today that I use that's completely changed the way that I work with teams and completely transformed my ability to succeed. One of the problems with leaders is we use the language of business. The language of business is designed to suck the joy out of everyone. Yeah, we hear in business, don't we, about needing human resources to deliver tasks. It's so dehumanizing. And I don't know about you, but I do not identify as a human resource. So what's the alternative? When you're delivering your events, rather than getting human resources to deliver tasks, instead enable people to achieve amazing results. Not only will they achieve more, but they'll love you for it. Actually, often what we do is focus on the task. We're so focused on the task, we forget the person. What I do is I'm always asking, does the person have the 4 conditions to enable them to achieve their best result? Now, that's enough ranting for me for the moment. We're going to have a little story. We're going to talk about Zach. So Zach was pursuing his goals, living his dreams of studying at Cambridge University. And as he was pursuing what was meaningful to him, all of a sudden, Cambridge throws him out. Along with all the other students, all the other staff, Cambridge shuts its doors for the pandemic. And if that's not scary enough, with his whole world being turned upside down, he's now got to make his way home on public transport, which at the start of a pandemic is pretty scary too, isn't it? just desperate to stay away from everyone. Thankfully, Zach gets home safe and sound, and he promptly hides away from the world, which is brilliant. That's what you're meant to do in a pandemic. We're going to leave Zach over here hiding away. But let's be honest, you and I, it's not just pandemics we'll have to hide from, it's all of our nightmares. And the pertinent question is, how many of the people that you're working with are still trying to hide away? Are you trying to hide away? As a leader, our role is to enable people to come out of the shells, to deliver everything that they can deliver. But if we're scared, if we're fearful, if we can't trust those around us, we're not going to be able to achieve that. Let's take someone else. Let's take Sisyphus. So Sisyphus, for those of you that know your classics, was the king of Corinth. The first king of Corinth. He was a pretty important guy. But sadly, he'd upset someone even higher up. He'd upset Zeus himself, the head of the gods, or the head god. And Sisyphus kind of knew that his time was up. So he went to his wife and he said, "Do you love me?" She said, "Of course I love you, Sisyphus." "Excellent. Well, I've got a rather strange request, but I need you to promise me something. When I die, I want you to strip my body naked and throw me into the street with the dogs." I know. You didn't think it was going to be that sort of show, did you? But she did love him, so she promised, and not a night too soon, because that night, as Sisyphus lay sleeping, along came Thanatos to collect him, or death as we know it today. And Thanatos took Sisyphus down to the underworld. And as Sisyphus was making his way through that ultimate journey through the underworld of death, he came across none other than Hades himself, the god of the underworld. "Mighty Hades, you're a god. You understand the importance of respect and decorum. Well, I'm a king," was a king. "But when I died, my wife stripped my body naked and threw me into the street with the dogs. It's an outrage. It's an outrage now. I know it's a stupid idea, but if I just had 24 hours, I could go back there, sort things out, and I'd come straight back. But yeah, I recognize you'd be powerless to help, absolutely powerless to help." Well, Hades was a god, and he was outraged. So Sisyphus got to do what all of us dream of doing, coming back from that ultimate nightmare of death. And when he got back to his body, he promptly ran away. He ran away. Now, we're going to come back to Sisyphus later as well. We're going to leave Sisyphus over here. But don't we all long to hide and run from our nightmares? But let's flip it. Let's look from the other perspective. How often do you have reasonable discussions with people where you agree reasonable objectives, and then when your back is turned, they don't deliver on any of them? They run away, they stop answering your calls, and it's just a nightmare to chase them all the time. What's the problem there? Well, it brings us to the first condition, a vision. The vision that Sisyphus had going forward was completely different to the vision that Hades had for him. Now, that's one of the issues, is unless you have a shared vision, unless you take the time to ensure it's really clear what we're trying to achieve, then often we get that friction. But thankfully, in business, we're fantastic at visions, aren't we? We use visions all the time, and we articulate the visions that we have for things. And yeah, I've actually become a little bit of a vision geek. I love visions and love vision statements. So I've gone searching for the greatest visions, and I've found it, and I'm going to share it with you. And you're going to be absolutely blown away with this vision that I found. I hope you sat down. You ready? Here it is. I've got a little bit of confession to make. This isn't the greatest vision, is it? It's an example of the worst vision. It's an example of that business language I've been talking about, sucking the joy out of everything. But we use these sort of visions all the time. And apart from sucking all the excitement out of life, I'm not sure what they're for. I don't know about you, they certainly don't motivate me. I'm not actually interested in that sort of vision. What I'm interested in is what is actually driving someone. I had the privilege of talking to 3 members of the audience in preparation for this talk to find out what drives you when you're creating events. One of you said, an event is like a puzzle, and I just love getting into the details and working it out and solving it. Someone else said, an event is my gift to the world. See, that's a vision. That's a vision. And when you are working with people, especially when you're finding a little bit of resistance, finding those visions, what's really driving them, is key to enabling them to succeed and your event to succeed. Let me share with you the actual greatest vision. I've got an example of the greatest vision that I've come across. Here it is. This is a cave painting from the cave of Altamira 15,000 years ago. And yes, I am saying the greatest vision is some graffiti on a cave from 15,000 years ago. But the simplicity of it, I just love it. Immediately you're there, aren't you? Immediately you understand exactly what this team is coming together to achieve, how they're going to achieve it. You understand that if they work together and achieve this mammoth result, then they're going to go home heroes. And maybe the tribe survives the winter. That's a vision. That's what you're trying to find for your event. Now, so the first condition that we all need is a vision. Let's have a look a little bit deeper. Let's have a look at the roles in this particular cave painting. Let's have a look at the person at the tail end of the elephant. We're going to call him Fred. So Fred, if you notice, is kind of leaning back. He doesn't have a spear. That's because the spear is in the elephant. One of the things that I love about this painting is it's an action shot. Fred has thrown his spear. So his mammoth task is to bring down the elephant. How about the person directly above the elephant? Well, what are they doing? The kind of legs are extended. They've still got their spear. Plainly, they're running round to support Fred. We're going to call him Barney. So Barney is supporting Fred, and we all need support, don't we? If we're trying to achieve something of this nature that's a mammoth task, you know, mammoths are overwhelming. We use that language all the time. It's overwhelming. But with the correct support, we can achieve it. We can achieve amazing things. What happens, though, if Barney is coming around to actually stab Fred? See, Fred is now vulnerable. He's thrown his spear. If in our work lives, what we're really doing is trying to protect ourselves from being attacked, then we can't achieve what needs to be achieved. We can't bring down the elephant that's before us. We don't have the energy for that. So one thing that's crucial is to make sure we can trust each other on our team, that we have this support. Now let's look at another role. Let's look at this person in front of the elephant. What are they doing? Let's call them Wilma. So we've got Fred, Barney, and Wilma. For those of you that watched the Flintstones as a child. What's Wilma doing? So Wilma is kind of leaning back, is moving, spears in hands. Plainly, what she's doing is distracting the elephant. So why is she doing that? She is enabling Fred to take down the elephant. So she's enabling. That's one of the mistakes we make, is we think we've got to manage people, whereas really what to do is support them and enable them. So let's go back to those conditions then. If you remember, there are 4 conditions that we all need to thrive. So we need a vision. The second thing we need is we need autonomy. We need the ability to complete the tasks in front of us. Now, each of the roles that we talked about, they have autonomy to do what needs to be done for their roles. But if Wilma starts to micromanage Fred, they're going to lose. Probably the elephant's going to trample one of them. So we need autonomy to act. The third thing we need is mastery. We need the skills to complete the task ahead of us. And actually, again, that's one of the reasons I love this painting, is because plainly, it's training. It's teaching the team before they go out to get the elephant. Well, these are the roles we have to play. This is how we're going to do it. This is a real vision. And perhaps this is the first example of real leaders. Now, I know in the events industry that, as the pandemic hit, events were cancelled and then started going online, and you had to use all sorts of new skills. And it's difficult at first, isn't it, to deal with new problems that come up without the skills to deal with them. But as you find the people that can help you, as you get the right training, all of a sudden you become masters again and are able to deliver amazing events. So we need mastery, and finally we need belonging. We need the belonging. We need to feel that trust and support that we've got people around us that can support us and we can support. So one thing I always do is I always find out when I'm working with people, do they have these conditions? Does it enable them? Do the conditions around them enable them to thrive? Now, let me give you a practical example of how I use this. Let me tell you about Alex. So Alex was working on a project. He was one of the suppliers that we were working with. So this project was quite a large project that we were delivering, and it was getting to that point where things were not going well. We'd spent a long time bringing together the 12 teams to achieve a quite hard deadline and bring everything together. Everything had to be aligned, but sadly, Alex was just falling behind. And if Alex didn't deliver, the whole thing was going to be a car crash. It was going to cost around £200,000 if he didn't deliver. So it was pretty important, but he just wasn't. He wasn't engaging with us. He wasn't giving us what we needed. So we did the correct business things. We put in daily calls. We escalated things to his manager. Nothing was working. Eventually, we managed to get Alex on a call. And this was the last chance saloon. It was really close to the end. If this didn't work, we were going to have big problems. And I said, Alex, I really hope you've got what we need today. And he said, I'm just worried about being humiliated. Did he have those 4 conditions? I said to him, Alex, it sounds like you're worried about being humiliated. Yeah, last time was horrendous. Alex, we're on your team. We're here to do this together. If problems come up, if issues arise, we'll deal with them together. We're on your side, Alex. And Alex started to show us what he had. And actually, we managed to tease out that he'd actually got a lot of what we needed. And as he delivered what we needed, I said to him, oh, Alex, I bet you're a lot less stressed now. It's massively reduced the risk. He said, oh, it could all still go wrong. It could all still go wrong. But Alex, it's fine. We're on your side. We'll deal with any problems together. And as he delivered, we were able to see what was needed. And an amazing thing happened. When we came off that call, all of a sudden, Alex started to deliver. And as we supported him to deliver, he started to deliver on all the issues we had really rapidly. And we managed to deliver the whole project on time to budget. It was a fantastic success. That project is now saving that client around £600,000 a year. I knew something amazing had happened on that project. So I gave Alex a call afterwards and said, what was my impact on that meeting? And he said, well, before then, I was working 60 hours a week and nothing I was doing was good enough. After then, I knew I had an ally. And it became a real buzz to work on the project with you. Do you see the difference that these conditions make? Did he have a vision? He was focused on not being humiliated. Did he have autonomy? Well, nothing he did mattered. Did he have mastery? He actually did have the skills we needed, but he didn't feel like he did because he didn't have belonging. He didn't have the support. He didn't have the enablers to enable him to do the work. But when we restored that, all of a sudden, we got everything we needed. And this is what I do in business. Now, let's go back to Sisyphus. Remember, we left Sisyphus hiding away from death. The problem is, the more we hide from our nightmares, the worse it gets. So Sisyphus enraged Zeus, and Zeus himself came and dragged Sisyphus, not just to the underworld now, but to Tartarus, the lowest point in the underworld. And to Sisyphus, your punishment is to push that boulder up that mountain. And if you get to the top, you're free to go. So Zeus left, and Sisyphus starts to push the boulder up the mountain. And as he pushes, He gets about a quarter of the way up and says, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. But then he gets a second wind, manages to push, gets halfway up. This is really tough. He gets 3/4 of the way up and he slips and the boulder runs down the hill again, runs down the mountain. So he does the same thing again and again and again. And the myth is he's still doing that to this day. Now, does Sisyphus have the conditions to survive, to thrive? Does he have a vision that he cares about? No, he's pushing a rock up a hill. Does he have autonomy about how he pushes the rock up the hill? No. He has no control over how he does it. Does he have mastery? He can never gain mastery over that rock, can he? He can never improve. And finally, does he have belonging? No, he's completely isolated. Completely isolated. I find it fascinating that that Sisyphus is in such a horrendous condition, not just in the underworld, but the lowest point in the underworld, Tartarus. Because even 2,500 years ago, the Greeks knew what the definition of hell was. Now, if the people that you're trying to bring together in hell, how effective do you think they are at working, at delivering? First, restore the conditions that enable them to thrive, and then they'll achieve amazing things. I've seen it again and again. Let's come back to Zach. If you remember, we left Zach hiding away from the pandemic. Now, he actually thrived. He did phenomenally well. He was in hiding from the pandemic for 18 months. And at the end of that time, he'd actually solved he'd given us the theory of gravity, the 3 laws of motion. He was, of course, Sir Isaac Newton in 1666. His pandemic was the bubonic plague. Now, how did he do? How did he thrive? Well, did he have a vision that mattered to him? He wasn't worried about the whole pandemic and what was going on. He was really focused on his vision of what he wanted to achieve. So yes, he did. Did he have autonomy to go about solving the problem as he saw fit? Absolutely did. Did he have mastery over what he was trying to solve? Well, he didn't at first, but he certainly came to, didn't he? And finally, did he have belonging? Well, that's an interesting one because he was isolated at home. But he said that the only reason he's been able to see further was by standing on the shoulders of giants. Now, I thought that was quite profound when I thought about that how many giant shoulders are we standing on today to be exactly where we are now? And there's an awful lot of problems around us right now to solve. So who are the giants whose shoulders that we're going to have to stand on? Well, it's us, isn't it? It's us. So when we put on events, who are the giants whose shoulders our audiences are going to stand on? It can't just be you. It's got to be all of us. The speakers, the audiovisual, the catering, the venue, all of us coming together. So who is the giant whose shoulders the rest of us are going to stand on to be our best selves? Well, what enables me as a speaker to stand here? It's someone just like you. Thank you. Go be our giant.
Thank you for being part of the series. I was intrigued by the conversation and by your talk because being a person who's been in the industry for such a long time, it was fascinating to me because when you were talking about various iterations of the people who are involved, I could see those people. I could see the daunting task in front of many people, and being an MC or a speaker like yourself, you see those events unfolding in real time. So I found it fascinating. So thank you very much for being with us today. Did you enjoy yourself?
Oh, I loved it. It was amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Now, in terms of, well, listen, first of all, it's a real pleasure because of the fact that obviously I'm going to assume a lot of people around the world will be seeing you for the first time. So hopefully this is going to lead to many great things happening for you around the globe as well. What I would like to do is I would like to ask you a couple of questions about, number one, the talk, some of the content, and also some of the questions that have come up in terms of other people watching and then getting hold of us in terms of finding out certain things from you. One of those being right up front, and one of the most obvious, and I think you've answered it to a certain degree in the talk, does focusing on the conditions always improve performance? It's an intriguing question. I think I know where you're going to go, but I can't wait to hear what you say.
Yeah, well, the truth is no. The truth is no, it doesn't. Because what you're trying to do, I see a lot of the theory behind my talk is something called self-determination theory. And it's all about helping people become, those self-managers, they're self-determining their own workload and how they deal with things, how they move forward. And so we're trying to underpin people, enable them to really thrive. But obviously, half it can come from you, but you can't take away the other person. So it turns out, actually, sometimes it doesn't work. But what I can say is absolutely where it works, it's beautiful to do because you've got someone that's just struggling. You don't even really know why they're struggling. And if you can spot and see, it's because they don't feel they've got that belonging. Like my friend that I talked about, he was isolated. He didn't feel like, so nothing he did was good enough. Therefore, even though he had all the skills, he had all the knowledge to do exactly what was needed, he just felt crushed. Actually, you can restore that belonging. Then all of a sudden you've got, he was a superstar, absolute superstar. And that's often what people need. It actually makes me sad how little encouragement people need sometimes. And we're just so focused on, we're trying to bring everything together. We've got an event to do. We've got a million things on our plate. And so we're just rushing around and we don't see the person that's struggling. And actually, if we just slow down a little bit, take that moment to see them, then we can really build them up and they can fly with us. Then the second part is sometimes you come across people that are playing games. They've got a different agenda, and actually it helps there too, because what it does is it shows you sometimes, something else is going on, right? So you can kind of see the real situation and you can say, okay, either maybe something has to change, maybe I do have to escalate this to someone, but something has to change because you've tried the right things to work with them to get that shared vision of the mammoth task that we're all working on rather than our own local fears. You've tried to give them the belonging they need, the autonomy they need. You've tried everything. Actually, then you can, with good conscience, then go to the next level of do what you need to do to ensure that the mammoth task that you've got is going to go smoothly and phenomenally and be as amazing as it can be. So there's two sides to it.
Absolutely. And I thought you were going to go somewhere there, but it surprised me in terms of the second part because of the fact that different people do most certainly need different inspiration, let's call it that, and different direction. That can sometimes create a little bit of conflict, I would assume, because certain people don't want to work the same way other people do. So when there's conflict in a team, for instance, if there's conflict in terms of the way one person wants to do it and the way somebody else wants to do it, how do you go about resolving that kind of situation?
So that's a great question, really great question. Let me share with you an example. And I guess to your point of people need different things, absolutely they do. But typically we all need a sense of belonging. Now, one person's sense of belonging might not be got from your team, it might be got from their friends, but we're social animals. So actually underneath, there are some fundamental principles at play. But absolutely how that occurs with each individual person, you're absolutely spot on. Some people need different things, and actually that's what you're trying to pay attention to. In terms of conflict then, let me share with you an example that happened to me a couple of years ago now. I was brought onto a project, and what I was tasked with doing is, here's a messy problem. How do we move forward? How do we go forward from here? We're not really sure the steps forward. So what I had to do was to go on an interview, just loads of people, just sit there, listen to them, find out what opportunities there were, find out what problems were potentially there, and then create some sort of strategy at the end that they could run with. Well, I went to one of the particular people that I needed to speak to, and I had a chat and we built a little bit of a connection. I said, I'd really love to sit down and just find out from your expertise what the issues are in this particular area. And we agreed a time. Everything was fine. I went away, happy as anything. Things are moving forward. The next day, this man walked into my office looking very crestfallen. And next to him was a very, very angry manager. And the angry manager pulled him over and said, found me, said, you are not to talk to him. How dare you talk to him? He was incandescent with rage. He's just furious that I'd had the temerity to talk directly to his employee rather than go through him. And he said, you can't just go through me even. You got to go to Richard. You're not allowed to give him any new functions. Why on earth would you tell him new things he needs to do? You cannot do it. And just as he's getting angrier and angrier, the great thing is I can use these conditions to say, what's going on there? What's going on there? What's he scared of? Because often we're driven by fear, right? And unless you deal with that fear, then if I start saying, well, I absolutely will talk to him because I've got, you're speaking at the wrong level. So what I was able to say is, I see what's wrong. So he was worried his project was going to get undermined. So this is what I said to him. I said, so you're worried that I'm going to give your employee some requirements. I'm going to ask him to develop some things in the software. And actually, you're worried that what's going to happen is your whole project gets undermined because it gets pulled in a different direction. You've really got to tightly control it, don't you? And I bet you've seen that so many times, and you do not want to happen to this project. And you could see as I called out his fear, you could see his whole demeanor, just calm because I'd connected to him, right? Whereas before we had two separate visions of what we wanted to achieve. I was absolutely not on his team. Whereas after that, he's like, Leon gets me. So then I'll say, well, just so you know, we're not even at that level yet. We're nowhere close to saying what we need to do. We're just at a discovery stage trying to find out what the problems are. Actually, I just want to sit down and just find out the benefits of your project, how it could possibly help us, how we could possibly align with you in the future. But obviously that seems like a problem. And it was interesting that he just went, no, that's absolutely fine. No, of course you can do that. I said, well, do you mind if I sit down with your employee and talk to him? Oh, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. And he's all smiles and happy. And because he'd been so emphatic at the start that this is something will not happen, I said, are you sure? Yeah, of course you can. Right? Because I'd reached into his world and because he had his own mammoth task that he was scared I was going to derail. Sure. So then I could reach into his world, we could connect, I could build these conditions, give him that autonomy to make sure he could achieve the goals he wanted to achieve. And all of a sudden, we could go away and we worked well together in the future. It was a really beautiful moment of seeing him as a person. So that's what I'm always keen on, is I really want to see people. We can so focused on achieving stuff, we don't see the person.
You sound to me like you'd be a really good football manager, Leon. Do you enjoy football? Because so many of these things, I think, can go into the sporting arena in terms of that connection. Am I right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I listened to a phenomenal interview once. I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately, but he was a professional footballer, and he was talking about the difference between being on a team and being on a group of very talented individuals. And he was talking about back in the 90s of being able to tell his teammates that he was gay. That was something that couldn't be done at the time. He'd had to hide it, except when he was on a team. And he said you could tell the difference. When he's on a team of people that he could trust and he can work with, then he could happily just tell them and talk to them, and you can be vulnerable. Sure. And that's, again, the thing I really try to stress in my speech. It's become much more apparent to me. Yes. If we can be vulnerable with the people around us, then all of a sudden, issues that we're having, we can say, do you know what? I'm not sure about that. And that's what I'm often doing when I'm working with teams, is I'm looking for those individuals that have the correct questions to ask. The whereabouts, they're aware of the car crashes that are going to happen. But if they don't feel like they can be vulnerable to tell us, then actually we're going to have the car crash anyway. Right? So finding those people and building them up and allowing them to feel part of us and allowing them to be authentically vulnerable, right? We can't then take advantage of them if they're vulnerable.
Sure. Of course.
But if they can be authentically vulnerable, then all of a sudden we have a real team. And you're absolutely right in terms of any sports. I think sports is the thing that we put on a pinnacle, because they're these professional teams that we see to come together. And when we see a team come together, it's like a religious experience for us. We love it. It's why
it really is.
Why we're so driven to watch these and to see these come together and to see the perfect pass being made and to see, it's just it's amazing to watch because they're together as a team so much.
You used a word in the talk. By the way, before we move on to the question, you were saying now when you work with teams, so besides doing the talk, you're obviously physically involved with working with teams around the world as well, right?
Yeah. That's a lot of what I do. Is I work with teams. They bring me in, and I'll come help the team come together. Help them focus on what they need to focus on. Help them deal with any underlying nightmares that are often destabilizing the team. You might have a shared nightmare that's dragging you in another direction. You might have lots of individual nightmares of trying to trying to avoid maybe getting fired, or there's a big restructuring happening and you're scared of losing your job. Then it's really hard to get that team together. So certainly if that's happened, certainly after the restructuring has happened, then bringing me in to help bring the team back together again and focus on what matters is can be a useful thing to go. So I love that.
Very beneficial.
I love working with teams directly to really help them thrive.
You use the word mammoth a good few times in the talk, in the 20 minutes you spent with us. Now, mammoth in itself, because we know it is mammoth, it's huge. How do you make this mammoth task seem manageable? How do you go about starting that process? Because that really is, the one bite at a time with the elephant. I mean, I get that it's a very similar kind of process, but you as a person who tries to activate a team in terms of getting the best out of them, how do you make that mammoth, that woolly mammoth, how do you make it feel nice and tidy and put it in the corner so you can get going?
Yeah, great question. And when the task is overwhelming, then you can't break it down. That becomes your nightmare of, I just can't do this. I can't cope with this. And one of the things is, I love using the term mammoth task, because what amazes me is how deep that is, right? How long has that been in our language? And does it take us all the way back to the caves when we were there? Actually, that if we weren't able to cope with the mammoth task back then, well, we'd still be there, right? So first off is having that wider perspective that, what, even though it seems overwhelming now, I've got this. I'm going to be able to get through this. And then the question is not, can I get through this, but how do I get through this? And recognizing for each of us, we all need those enablers, that support, that, if we're to achieve those mammoth results, sure, we can do things on our own, right? We can go off, go into the desert and achieve amazing things on our own of strength and endurance. But if we want to achieve a mammoth task of pushing humanity that little bit further forward in whatever area we're working in, then we're going to need to come together as a team. We need to have, who are those people that will support us? Who are those people we can rely on, that we can be vulnerable with? Who are those people that are enabling us to focus on the mammoth task? Because if we're focusing on the saber-toothed tiger that's coming to get us as well, then we can't achieve the mammoth task. So you need those enablers to take away that danger that we don't have to worry about. We can just focus on the difficult task we've already got ahead of us. If we've got that team together, then that's the power of humanity. That is the power of how we've got from the cave to the Isaac Newton of helping us get that a little bit further, and the cave to Sisyphus to Isaac Newton. That's why I tried to tie it together and really connect us all the way down, because that's who we are. This is who we are.
Agreed.
We've got this. Sure. We're amazing at it. It's our superpower as humans.
And that is exactly where I'm going to end the question session, because I cannot imagine a better way for you to be able to close off your session. Leon, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your enthusiasm. And I'm sure many people who have seen you online today for the very first time will make sure it's not the last time they see you. Thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you all day, to be perfectly honest. I find the subject matter absolutely fascinating. You're a great guy. I hope we work together again real soon. Thank you so much for your time, Leon. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you later.